Have you ever wondered why a modern dairy farmer with millions of dollars in equipment would drive hours to pay? $10,000 cash for old-fashioned Amish hay? No chemicals, no preservatives, just grass cut and dried the way it's been done for centuries. What these farmers discovered changed everything they thought they knew about feeding their cows. Their milk production skyrocketed, vet bills dropped, and their cows actually lived longer. The secret wasn't in some expensive feed, supplement, or new technology. It was hidden in the simple, traditional methods the Amish never abandoned. What they found will shock you. Welcome to Amish Forge, where we uncover the timeless wisdom of traditional farming that's changing modern agriculture. Today, we're diving into a story that's turning the dairy industry upside down. Across America, progressive dairy farmers are making an unusual choice. They're bypassing their regular feed suppliers and heading straight to Amish communities. Willing to pay premium prices for hay made the old way. But this isn't about nostalgia or some romantic idea of the past. This is about hard numbers, real profits, and healthier animals. In the next 30 minutes, we'll break down exactly what makes Amish hay worth $10,000, show you the documented results farmers are seeing, and reveal why this trend is just getting started. Let's get into it. The Modern Dairy Farming Challenge. The American dairy industry is facing a crisis that most consumers never see. Walk into any modern dairy farm today, and you'll find state-of-the-art milking parlors, computerized feeding systems, and technology that can monitor every cow's health in real time. But despite all this innovation, farmers are struggling more than ever. The core problem: feed costs have exploded while milk prices remain unstable. Traditional hay suppliers have raised their prices by nearly 40% over the past 5 years. But the real killer isn't just the costiness, the inconsistency. Modern hay production relies heavily on chemical fertilizers, pesticides, and machine drying processes that prioritize speed over quality. Farmers are paying premium prices for hay that looks good on paper but fails to deliver the nutrition their cows desperately need. The consequences show up in the milk tank. Production per cow has plateaued or even declined on many farms. Butterfat percentages are dropping. Protein content isn't meeting the standards that premium processors demand. And perhaps most alarming, cow health issues are rising. Digestive problems, reduced fertility, and shorter productive lifespans are becoming the norm rather than the exception. Veterinary bills tell the story that farmers don't want to face, where a dairy operation might have spent $15,000 annually on vet costs a decade ago. That number has often doubled or tripled. Metabolic disorders, acidosis, and immune system problems plague herds that should be thriving on modern nutrition programs. The frustration is palpable when you talk to these farmers. They've invested everything into doing things right. Better genetics, improved facilities, advanced monitoring systems, yet their margins keep shrinking. Many are working 100-hour weeks just to break even. Some are selling out entirely, unable to compete in an industry that demands more while paying less. This is where our story really begins, because across the country, a small but growing number of dairy farmers started asking a different question. Instead of looking forward to the next technological solution, they started looking backward to methods that seemed outdated, even primitive. They started paying attention to whispers about Amish hay. And what they discovered would challenge everything the modern dairy industry had taught them about feeding cows. Who are the Amish farmers? The Amish community represents one of the last bastions of traditional agriculture in America, with populations concentrated in Pennsylvania, Ohio, Indiana, and Wisconsin. These communities have maintained farming practices that date back centuries, not out of ignorance of modern methods, but through deliberate choice rooted in their faith and values. Amish farmers work their land without tractors, combines or the petroleum-based inputs that define contemporary agriculture. Instead, they rely on horse-drawn equipment, natural fertilization, and an intimate understanding of soil health passed down through generations. Their hayfields aren't treated with synthetic chemicals. There are no growth hormones, no pesticides sprayed from massive booms, no anhydrous ammonia tanks pumping nitrogen into the soil. This isn't hobby farming or a tourist attraction. Amish agriculture is serious business, refined over hundreds of years of observation and experience. These farmers understand soil biology in ways that modern agricultural science is only beginning to rediscover. They know that healthy soil produces healthy plants, which in turn produce healthy animals. The Amish approach to haymaking is methodical and patient. They cut their fields based on plant maturity and weather patterns, not arbitrary schedules. The grass is allowed to cure naturally in the sun, turned by hand or with simple equipment to ensure even drying. There's no forcing the process with propane-fired dryers or chemical preservatives. The hay either dries properly or they wait. Quality control happens at every step. Amish farmers can tell you about each field's history, what was planted there last year, how the weather affected growth, when the optimal cutting window occurred. They know their land because they walk it, work it by hand, and depend on it completely for their livelihood. Their communities operate on reputation. An Amish farmer who sells poor quality hay won't stay in business long. Word travels fast in tight-knit communities, and trust is everything. This built-in accountability system has created a culture where quality isn't just negotiable. What modern farmers are discovering is that this traditional approach isn't backward at all. In many ways, it's more advanced than industrial agriculture because it works with natural systems rather than trying to override them with chemicals and technology. The $10,000 transaction explained, when a modern dairy farmer writes a check for $10,000 to an Amish family, they're not just buying hay, they're investing in a completely different approach to animal nutrition. But what exactly does that money buy, and how does it compare to conventional alternatives? A typical $10,000 purchase represents approximately 20 to 25 tons of premium Amish hay. Depending on the variety and quality grade, this might seem expensive at first glance, especially when conventional hay from commercial suppliers runs anywhere from $150 to $250 per ton. By that math, you'd expect to pay only $4,000 to $6,000 for the same volume. But here's where the comparison breaks down. Amish hay isn't measured purely by weight, it's measured by nutritional density. Laboratory analysis consistently shows that Amish hay contains 15 to 25% higher protein content than conventionally produced hay. The mineral profile is richer, with significantly higher levels of calcium, phosphorus, and trace minerals that are often depleted in chemically farmed fields. The digestibility factor is equally important, because Amish hay is cut at optimal maturity and cured naturally. It maintains fiber structures that cows can actually break down and utilize. Commercial hay, often cut early and force-dried to maximize yield, can have digestibility rates 20 to 30% lower than properly cured traditional hay. You might be feeding the same weight, but your cows are extracting far less nutrition. Storage characteristics matter too. Amish hay, when properly made, has moisture content that prevents mold and spoilage without chemical preservatives. Conventional hay often requires treatment with propionic acid or other preservatives to prevent heating and deterioration. These chemicals aren't free, and they can affect palatability, meaning cows may not eat as much. The transaction itself often happens differently than modern agricultural deals. There are no contracts, no lawyers, no complicated payment terms. You visit the farm, inspect the hay, negotiate a fair price, and shake hands. Payment is typically cash or check on delivery. This simplicity eliminates middlemen and ensures that farmers know exactly what they're getting. Many dairy farmers report that the relationship formed during these transactions is as valuable as the hay itself. Amish suppliers often provide advice on feeding strategies, storage methods, and even cow health based on generations of experience. How Amish make superior hay. The secret to Amish hay quality starts months before the first cutting. In soil that's been managed according to principles most modern farmers have forgotten. Amish fields receive regular applications of composted manure. Not raw manure spread thin, but properly aged compost, rich in beneficial microorganisms. This isn't just fertilizer. It's a complete soil ecosystem in a spreadable form. These farmers understand that soil is alive. They're feeding billions of bacteria, fungi, and other microorganisms that break down organic matter and make nutrients available to plants. Chemical fertilizers might force quick growth, but they do nothing to build soil structure or support microbial life. In fact, heavy chemical use often kills the very organisms that create long-term soil health. Field rotation is another critical component. Amish farmers rarely grow hay on the same ground year after year without rotation. They might plant corn or other crops in rotation, allowing different plant species to utilize and replenish various soil nutrients. This practice prevents the nutrient depletion that plagues monoculture operations. When cutting time approaches, Amish farmers watch their fields with an experienced eye. They're looking for the perfect window, when grass has reached optimal maturity, high in nutrients, but before stems become too woody and indigestible. This timing isn't determined by a calendar or a corporate feeding schedule. It's based on plant development, weather forecasts, and generations of accumulated knowledge. The cutting itself is done with horse-drawn mowers that clip grass cleanly without the crushing and bruising that can occur with high-speed tractor equipment. The cut hay is left to wilt in windrows, turned periodically to ensure even drying. This is where patience becomes crucial. Rushing the drying process with chemicals or excessive handling damages the leaves where most nutrients concentrate, whether watching becomes an art form during hay season. Amish farmers need several consecutive days of dry weather to properly cure hay. They'll delay cutting if rain threatens, even if it means missing an optimal maturity window. Wet hay is worthless, hay or worse. It's dangerous hay that can spontaneously combust in the barn. The final baling happens only when moisture content drops to safe levels, usually between 15 and 18%. There are no preservatives, no shortcuts. The hay is simply gathered, baled, and stored in well-ventilated barns. The nutrition difference. Laboratory testing reveals what experienced farmers have suspected for years. Not all hay is created equal. Independent feed analysis comparing Amish hay to conventional commercial hay shows differences that directly impact dairy production and profitability. Protein content in premium. Amish hay consistently tests between 18 and 22% crude protein. Conventional hay from the same region, grown with chemical inputs and mechanical drying, typically ranges from 12 to 16%. This isn't a small difference, it's the gap between cows that maintain body condition while producing heavily and cows that burn through body reserves trying to meet production demands, but protein percentages only tell part of the story. The quality of that protein matters enormously. Amish hay contains higher levels of degradable intake protein, which means the protein is in a form that rumen bacteria can actually utilize. Chemical preservatives and high heat drying can denature proteins, making them pass through the cow's system without being fully utilized. Mineral content shows equally dramatic differences. Calcium levels in Amish hay often exceed 1.2% of dry matter, compared 2.8% or lower in conventional hay. Phosphorus, magnesium, and trace minerals like copper, zinc, and selenium all show similar enrichment. These minerals aren't added artificially. They're drawn from healthy, biologically active soil and stored in plant tissues through natural processes. The fiber fraction deserves special attention. Amish hay maintains ideal ratios of neutral detergent fiber and acid detergent fiber, the measurements that determine how efficiently cows can digest and extract energy from forage. Proper curing preserves these fiber structures, allowing rumen bacteria to break them down effectively. Force-dried hay often has damaged fiber that resists microbial digestion, passing through the cow as expensive manure rather than being converted to milk. Energy density, measured as total digestible nutrients, consistently runs 5 to 10% higher in Amish hay. This means cows extract more usable energy from every pound consumed. When you're feeding a herd of 100 or 200 cows, this efficiency difference translates directly to thousands of dollars in reduced grain costs. Perhaps most importantly, Amish hay is clean. Testing shows virtually no pesticide residues, no herbicide contamination, and no mold toxins that plague poorly cured commercial hay. Impact on milk production. The true test of any feeding strategy comes in the milk tank, and this is where Amish hay proves its value in hard numbers. Dairy farmers who've made the switch report production increases that would be impossible to achieve through genetics or management alone. A typical case study involves a Wisconsin dairy that switched to Amish hay as their primary forage. Within 6 weeks, average daily production per cow increased from 75 pounds to a 2 pounds, a 9% jump with no other changes to the feeding program. That's an additional 1,400 pounds of milk per day, or roughly 42,000 pounds per month, at current milk prices averaging around $18 per hundredweight. That monthly increase represents over $7,000 in additional revenue. Annually, that's more than $80,000 in extra income from the same number of cows, eating roughly the same total quantity of feed, but production volume only tells part of the story. Milk quality improvements often matter even more. Butterfat percentages typically rise when cows consume high-quality forage. The same Wisconsin farm saw butterfat climb from 3.6% to 4.1%. Protein percentages increased from 3.0 to 3.3%. These quality premiums add up quickly. Many milk processors pay significant bonuses for higher component milk. A half-point increase in butterfat and a 0.3 increase in protein can add $2 to $3 per hundredweight to the milk check. On a farm producing 6,000 pounds daily, that's an additional $1,200 to $1,800. Monthly money that drops straight to the bottom line. Consistency matters too. Farms feeding Amish hay report more stable production curves throughout the lactation cycle. Cows maintain production longer rather than peaking sharply, then dropping off. This steadier production simplifies management and creates more predictable cash flow. Somatic cell counts, the measure of milk. Quality and udder health often improve as well. Better overall, nutrition supports stronger immune systems, reducing mastitis and other health challenges that spike cell counts and can result in milk being rejected or penalized. Cow health improvements. Beyond milk production numbers, the most compelling evidence for Amish hay comes from dramatic improvements in overall herd health. Veterinarians working with farms that have made the switch report changes that seem almost too good to be true. Yet the data backs them up consistently. Digestive health improvements appear first and most dramatically. Dairy cows are ruminants with complex four-chambered stomachs designed to ferment forage. When fed high-quality hay with proper fiber structure, their rumens function optimally. Farmers report significant reductions in acidosis, bloat, and displaced abomasum's costly conditions that plague cows fed poor-quality forage, supplemented with excessive grain. 1 Pennsylvania. Dairy farmer tracked his vet calls over 18 months after switching to Amish hay. Digestive-related emergency calls dropped from averaging 2 per month to less than 1 per quarter. Each emergency call typically costs between $300 and $800 when you factor in the vet visit, treatment, and lost production from sick cows. Body condition scores improve across the herd. Cows maintain healthy weight and muscle coverage even during peak lactation, when nutritional demands are highest. This isn't just aesthetic. Proper body condition correlates directly with fertility, disease resistance, and longevity. Thin cows struggle to conceive, fight off infections, and often leave the herd prematurely. Reproductive performance shows measurable gains. Conception rates on first breeding increase when cows are properly nourished. Days open the time between calving and successful rebreeding decrease significantly. For a dairy operation, every extra day a cow remains open represents lost milk production and delayed genetic progress. Hoof health benefits surprise many farmers. While hoof problems seem unrelated to hay quality, the connection is real. Better overall nutrition supports stronger hoof growth and integrity. Reduced digestive stress means less systemic inflammation, which contributes to conditions like laminitis that damage hooves. Immune function strengthens across the board. The rich mineral content and clean nature of Amish hay support robust immune systems. Farmers report fewer cases of pneumonia, reduced severity of mastitis infections, and better recovery rates when illness does occur. Calves born to cows fed quality hay are more vigorous and resilient. Perhaps most striking is increased longevity. In an industry where cows often leave the herd by their 4th or 5th lactation, farms feeding Amish hay report productive animals in their 7th, 8th, or even 9th lactation. These veteran cows represent enormous value. They're proven producers who've already paid for their raising costs multiple times over. The economics breakdown. Understanding the true economics of Amish hay requires looking beyond the initial sticker shock of that $10,000 investment. Smart farmers analyze total cost per unit of production rather than just input costs. And this is where the numbers become genuinely compelling. Let's start with the baseline investment. A dairy operation, feeding 100 milking cows will consume approximately 4 to 5 tons of hay. Over a feeding season of roughly 6 months, when cows are primarily on stored feed, that's 700 to 900 tons total. At $10,000 per 25 tons of Amish hay, you're looking at total hay costs of approximately $280,000 to $360,000. Annually, that seems astronomical compared to conventional hay at $6,000 per 25 tons, which would run about $170,000 to $215,000 for the same volume. You're spending an extra $100,000 to $250,000 annually on hay alone. But here's where the calculation flips. Remember that 9% production increase? On a 100-cow dairy averaging 75 pounds per cow daily, that's 675 additional pounds of milk per day, multiplied by 180 days of winter feeding, and you've produced an extra 121,000 pounds of milk. At $18 per hundredweight, that's nearly $20 in additional revenue just from volume. And the component premiums from higher butterfat and protein, conservatively worth another $15,000 to $20,000 annually. You're now at $37,000 to $42,000 in extra milk income. Now factor in reduced veterinary costs. A typical 100-cow dairy might spend $25,000 to $35,000 annually on vet services. Farmers switching to Amish hay consistently report 25% to 40% reductions in vet expenses. That's another $6,000 to $14,000 saved. Feed efficiency improvements matter enormously. When cows extract more nutrition from forage, they need less supplemental grain and protein. Many farms reduce grain feeding by 10% to 15% while maintaining or improving production. On a 100-cow dairy feeding 40 pounds of grain per cow daily, a 12% reduction saves roughly 2 tons of grain monthly. At $300 per ton, that's $7,000 saved annually. Cow longevity creates hidden value that's harder to quantify, but equally real. Every lactation you extend the productive life of your herd reduces replacement costs. Challenges modern farmers face. Making the switch to Amish hay isn't as simple as writing a check and loading a truck. Modern dairy farmers encounter real obstacles that can derail even the most enthusiastic attempts to change their feeding programs. Understanding these challenges helps explain why adoption remains limited despite the impressive benefits. Finding reliable suppliers tops the list of difficulties. Amish communities don't advertise in farm magazines or maintain websites with order forms. They operate through word-of-mouth networks and local reputation. A farmer in New York looking for Amish hay must somehow connect with producers in Pennsylvania or Ohio, often with no clear starting point. Even when you locate potential suppliers, communication barriers exist. Many Amish families don't have phones, or they share a community phone that's checked infrequently. Email and text messaging are obviously out of the question. You need to visit in person, which means driving, potentially hundreds of miles to farms that might not have hay available or might not be interested in selling to outsiders. The cultural gap presents challenges. Beyond just communication methods, Amish farmers operate on different timelines and different business philosophies than conventional agriculture. They don't rush, they don't commit to contracts far in advance, and they won't compromise quality to meet demand. This can frustrate modern farmers accustomed to scheduled deliveries and firm agreements. Transportation, logistics become complicated quickly. Amish suppliers rarely deliver. You're responsible for pickup. This means arranging trucks, coordinating schedules around weather and farm work, and managing the physical labor of loading potentially hundreds of bales. For farms accustomed to having suppliers deliver and unload, this represents a significant operational change. Storage requirements differ from conventional hay. Amish hay needs proper ventilation and protection from moisture. Many modern barns designed for wrapped baleage or commodity hay lack the airflow necessary for loose or traditionally baled hay. Farmers may need to invest in new storage structures or modify existing facilities. Quality assessment requires different skills. Without laboratory analysis readily available, farmers must learn to evaluate hay by sight, smell, and feel. Amish suppliers can teach these skills, but they take time to develop. Making a $10,000 purchase based on visual inspection demands confidence that many modern farmers lack initially. Amish hay is made during specific weather windows. You can't just order it whenever your inventory runs low. Success stories. Real-world examples bring the benefits of Amish hay into sharp focus. These aren't theoretical calculations or laboratory projections. They're actual results from working dairy farms. That made the switch and tracked their outcomes. Carefully, the Miller family, dairy in central Pennsylvania, provides one of the most documented cases. Operating a 160-cow registered Holstein herd, they switched to Amish hay in spring of 2021 after years of struggling with inconsistent milk production and high veterinary costs. Within 90 days, their rolling herd average increased from 23,000 pounds per cow annually to over 25,000 pounds. More impressively, their component percentages shifted dramatically. Butterfat climbed from 3.7 to 4.3%. Protein moved from 3.1 to 3.5%. These improvements added nearly $4 per hundredweight to their milk price through quality premiums. On their annual production of roughly 3.6 million pounds, that quality premium alone generated an additional $144,000 in revenue. Their veterinary expenses told an equally compelling story. The year before switching to Amish hay, they spent $42,000 on vet services. The following year, that number dropped to $26,000, a savings of $16,000. Most of that reduction came from fewer metabolic disorders and digestive emergencies. In Wisconsin, the Jensen operation runs a larger-scale dairy with 350 cows. They initially tested Amish hay on just one group of 100 cows while maintaining their conventional feeding program for the rest of the herd. This side-by-side comparison provided clear data. The Amish-fed group produced 7 pounds more milk per cow daily and showed notably better body condition scores. Convinced by the results, they transitioned the entire herd. First lactation heifers particularly benefited. With production curves that peaked higher and persisted longer than previous groups, the Jensens calculated their return on investment. At roughly 18 months, meaning the additional costs of Amish hay were completely offset by increased production and reduced expenses within a year and a half, a smaller organic dairy in Vermont switched to Amish hay. Primarily for philosophical reasons, they wanted to support traditional farming and reduce chemical inputs. The financial benefits surprised them. Despite already feeding high-quality organic hay, they still saw production increases of 4% and significant improvements in cow comfort and behavior. These farms share common themes: better milk production, improved cow health, reduced costs in other areas, and high satisfaction with their decision. The broader trend, the shift toward Amish hay, represents something larger than individual farm decisions, part of a fundamental questioning of industrial agriculture's assumptions that have dominated for the past 70 years. Across multiple sectors, farmers are rediscovering that newer and more technological doesn't automatically mean better. And this awakening is reshaping how we think about food production. Consumer demand is driving a significant part of this change. Walk into any grocery store today, and you'll see entire sections dedicated to organic, grass-fed, and traditionally produced products. Shoppers increasingly seek products from animals raised without antibiotics, hormones, or feeds grown with synthetic chemicals. They're willing to pay premium prices for dairy products that align with their values. Amish hay fits perfectly into these production systems, providing verifiable traditional inputs that resonate with conscious consumers. The organic dairy sector, particularly, has embraced Amish hay suppliers with open arms. Organic certification requires feeds produced without synthetic pesticides, herbicides, or fertilizers, exactly how Amish farmers have operated for generations. Finding truly organic hay in sufficient quantities challenges many organic dairies across the country. Commercial organic hay often comes from operations that barely meet minimum standards, converting conventional fields to organic and relying on purchased organic fertilizers. Amish suppliers fill this gap while providing quality that exceeds minimum organic standards by substantial margins. Environmental consciousness plays a growing role in farm decisions, especially among younger farmers entering the industry. These new generation farmers often prioritize sustainability alongside profitability, viewing the two as complementary rather than competing goals. Traditional hay production methods require no fossil fuel-intensive fertilizer production, no pesticide manufacturing facilities pumping chemicals into the environment, and minimal diesel fuel compared to industrial operations. The carbon footprint is dramatically lower. Some estimates suggest traditionally produced hay generates 60 to 70 less greenhouse gas emissions than conventionally produced hay when you account for the entire production chain. Soil health awareness has exploded in agricultural circles over the past decade, moving from fringe science to mainstream conversation. Farmers increasingly understand that soil isn't just dirt or a medium to hold plants upright. It's a living ecosystem that determines long-term productivity and sustainability. Terms like soil, organic matter, microbial diversity, and carbon sequestration are now common in farm conversations. Amish farming practices that build soil, organic matter, and support microbial life align perfectly with this new understanding. Every purchase of Amish hay supports farming systems that regenerate rather than degrade soil resources for future generations. Economic resilience matters too, perhaps now more than ever. The past few years have shown how vulnerable modern agriculture is to supply chain disruptions, geopolitical tensions, and price volatility. Farmers who depended on specific fertilizer sources faced massive price spikes when global supply chains tightened. Chemical suppliers experienced shortages that left farmers scrambling mid-season. Feed dealers couldn't guarantee consistent quality or availability. Traditional methods, using local resources, provide more independence and stability against these external shocks. Educational institutions are taking notice and changing their approach. Agricultural extension services that once dismissed traditional methods as outdated now study them seriously for lessons applicable to sustainable farming. Universities conduct research comparing conventional and traditional hay production, often finding that old methods produce superior results in areas beyond just yield. Soil health, water retention, wildlife habitat, and long-term sustainability all favor traditional approaches. Marketing advantages can't be ignored in today's competitive dairy landscape. Dairies that can tell customers their cows eat hay from Amish farms create powerful brand stories that differentiate them from commodity producers. These narratives sell milk, cheese, and yogurt at premium prices. Consumers connect emotionally with images of traditional farming, creating brand loyalty that transcends price competition. What this means for the future. Looking ahead, the intersection of traditional Amish farming and modern dairy operations suggests several likely developments that could reshape American agriculture in surprising and profound ways. The trends already visible point toward a future that looks simultaneously backward and forward, combining timeless wisdom with contemporary understanding. Expect increased demand for Amish hay to create significant capacity challenges in the coming years. Currently, Amish production focuses primarily on feeding their own animals, with surplus sold to neighbors and nearby farms within their immediate communities. As word spreads about the benefits and more distant dairies seek these products, supply won't immediately scale to meet demand. This isn't like industrial agriculture, where you can simply plant more acres and apply more inputs. Amish communities don't expand production. Using industrial methods, they grow gradually through generational farm transfers, careful land acquisition, and maintaining practices that prioritize quality over quantity. This supply constraint will likely push prices higher in the short term. The $10,000 purchases we're discussing today may become $15,000 or $20,000 as demand outpaces supply over the next 3 to 5 years. However, these higher prices will incentivize more Amish families to enter hay production and dedicate more acreage to premium hay crops. Young Amish farmers looking to establish themselves may see hay production as an attractive enterprise. Given the growing market will probably see the emergence of specialized brokers and distributors who focus specifically on connecting Amish suppliers with modern dairies across greater distances. These intermediaries could handle logistics, coordinate quality testing, manage transportation networks, and facilitate transactions while respecting Amish cultural practices and communication preferences. This would make Amish hay more accessible to farms located far from traditional Amish regions in states like Pennsylvania, Ohio, and Indiana. Imagine a dairy in Texas or California being able to access Amish hay through established distribution channels. Modern farmers may increasingly adopt Amish methods on their own land rather than just buying Amish products. The principles aren't secret or proprietary. They're based on fundamental soil biology, proper timing, and patience. Farmers willing to reduce chemical inputs and invest time in learning traditional techniques could produce similar quality hay themselves. This knowledge transfer could spark a genuine revival of sustainable forage production across the country. We are already seeing young farmers seeking mentorship from Amish communities. Spending time learning traditional methods firsthand, research institutions will likely increase studies on traditional farming methods significantly. As positive results accumulate and can no longer be dismissed as anecdotal, universities and agricultural research centers will want to understand exactly why these methods work at a scientific level. This could lead to hybrid approaches that combine traditional biological principles with modern monitoring and precision application technologies. Imagine using soil sensors and data analysis to optimize the timing and methods of traditional composting, or using drone imagery to identify the perfect cutting window for hay based on plant maturity indicators. The broader implications extend well beyond hay and forage production. If traditional methods prove superior for forage, farmers will naturally question other areas where industrial agriculture currently dominates. We might see renewed interest in rotational grazing systems that mimic natural herbivore patterns, diverse crop rotations that build soil rather than deplete it, reduced tillage approaches that preserve soil structure, and biological pest control that works with natural predator-prey relationships instead of trying to eliminate entire insect populations with chemicals. So, there you have it, the surprising truth behind why modern dairy farmers are paying $10,000 for traditional Amish hay. It's not about nostalgia or rejecting progress. It's about results that speak for themselves. Healthier cows, better milk, lower costs, and sustainable farming that actually works. Sometimes the old ways really are the best ways. If you found this video valuable, hit that like button and subscribe to Amish Forge for more stories about traditional wisdom transforming modern agriculture. Drop a comment below. You, a farmer who's tried traditional methods, what were your results? And if you know someone in dairy farming who needs to hear this, share this video with them. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.